Ever notice how ads always pop up at the worst moments? When the killer's identity is about to be revealed. During that perfect meditation flow. On Amazon Music, we believe in keeping you in the moment. That's why we've got millions of ad-free podcast episodes, so you can stay completely immersed in every story, every reveal, every breath. Download the Amazon Music app and start listening to your favorite podcasts ad-free, included with Prime.
You're listening to the Sisters in Loss podcast, a faith-based grief and loss podcast for Black women, where you will hear stories of miscarriage, infant loss, stillbirth, and infertility to learn there is a testimony in tragedy. You will learn how to heal, gain clarity, find hope and peace, and turn your pain into your purpose after loss. I'm your host, Erica M. McAfee. Well, thank you so much, Shalika, for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Erica. I appreciate it.
So share with us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Okay, so my name is Shalika Bethel. My husband is Adrian Bethel. I am a software engineer for a financial services company. I've been doing that for about 7 years. Background is heavy IT. I've kind of done some of everything in the field from databases to programming. So professionally, that's a little bit about me. Outside of that, I'm just a homebody who loves my friends, loves my family, loves being with my husband. I'm still learning what my hobbies are. I had to give up softball. Softball used to be a dream of mine, but I got a little old and my knees were like, no, girl, we're not doing this anymore. So I'm finding new hobbies.
Absolutely. We all got to find a hobby. I think I always tell people, girl, you need to find a hobby outside of your 9 to 5 just to get your mind and to find joy in something else, you know?
Yeah.
So I love that. I love that you used to do softball. So now you gotta find another one and you'll be on that journey. Absolutely. Absolutely. So share with us your journey to motherhood and your loss story.
Okay. So I'm still on the journey to motherhood. It's been about 3.5 years ago. My husband and I found out we were pregnant for the first time. We had been married for a year, and we had this whole timeline thing going like, okay, we're going to enjoy our first year, and then we'll try to get pregnant next year. So in August of 2015, we found out we were pregnant for the first time. We were super excited. We had our whole Lion King theme of how we were going to tell everybody, but it ended up being in a different way. I found out I was pregnant August 10th, getting ready to help my husband get ready for work. So he worked like super early in the morning. So I got up, got his lunch together. I had taken a pregnancy test, not because I was feeling anything. It was just so many people were asking us over the weekend, and it got, you know how things get in your head. I was like, I'm just going to take one and be done with it. At that point, I wasn't even late. So I was like, I'm just going to take it and be done with it. I took the test and leave it in the bathroom, go make my husband's lunch. And then he comes out of the bathroom like super melancholy, like, and my husband, he's not always emotional. So I was like, okay, what's wrong? What you okay? And so he shows me the pregnancy test and boom, we were pregnant. From that point, we scheduled our appointments. I didn't really have a whole lot go on. Like I didn't deal with any nausea. I had around week 7, I had some early bleeding, not a lot, more so spotting. We went to the doctor, they checked my HCG levels, and though they weren't increasing a lot, they still determined that the pregnancy was still viable and still going on normally. So we went in for our first OB at 8 weeks. My son actually measured, I didn't know he was a son at the time, but he actually measured like a week behind. So it was saying that I was 7 weeks when I was actually 8 weeks pregnant. But outside of that, The doctors weren't concerned about anything, and I just went on as normal. Around what would have been my 15th week of pregnancy, I had gone to the fair like earlier that week, and I did notice that afterwards I'd had a super large headache, but I thought I was stressing, so I didn't really take too much note of it. And then a few days later, I'd gone to work because my manager was in town. So part of my story is that most of the time I'll work from home when I can. So this was one of those days where I was happened to be in the office. And so the plan was to go into the office, meet with my manager, and then that night, my colleague and I were going to work from home on a production issue that we were trying to resolve. So I'd gone home after lunch. My husband at this time was working second shift, so we were kind of passing each other. He gave me a present because I think I was cranky before. So he gave me a present. I'll never forget. It was a Carolina Panthers lanyard and some candy. So I took my presents. I said, okay, I'm going to take a nap and I'm going to wake up. I probably napped for about an hour. I woke up to water running down my leg. And so I was like, trying not to panic, a little bit confused, never been pregnant before. So I didn't know if this was something that happens or if something was wrong. I went to the bathroom and I noticed that when I would use the restroom, I would hear a pop. So still trying not to panic, but knowing that, okay, this might not be normal. I started texting some people that I'd gone to church with, and I was saying, hey, my husband's at work. Something's weird going on. I may need someone to come over. So at that point, my pastor at the time had called and said, hey, Shalika, what's going on? So I was telling her what was going on. And she said, are you bleeding? I said, no. But when I got up to walk to my sink area, I felt something hanging between my legs. So I quickly ran back to the toilet, and I was like, I don't know what this is, and I'm afraid to look. So she said, go ahead and call 911. I called 911 and told them what was going on. And I told them, I said, listen, I'm home alone. My husband's at work. I'm deathly afraid to get up and do anything else. At this time, we were living in our apartment. I said, you guys are going to have to contact my leasing office to get someone to let you in because I can't get up. I'm not hurting, but I'm afraid. So they were able to get up with the maintenance guy. They got up to my apartment. And when he had me stand up, he confirmed that it was my baby. I believe I passed out. I'm not sure for how long I'd passed out for, but I remember that I felt really, really weak. And I woke up to vomit. And I was like, okay, guys, what's going on? And they were saying, you're in shock. We're getting ready to take you to the hospital. We did confirm that it is indeed a fetus. They took my baby. They put him in a bag and they wheeled me to the hospital, or wheeled us both to the hospital. Got to the hospital, met my OB, and at that point, they decided to try to help me pass the rest of the placenta, since around, me being so early in pregnancy, the placenta it doesn't know that it's supposed to, leave right away, even though that's what you expect your body to do. So they tried it manually and eventually gave me a D&C. In the midst of that process, so many decisions had to be made very quickly. They asked us if we wanted to see the baby. And because of my fear of what my baby could look like, what I'd already saw, my husband and I, we adopted to not view our child. So they did the D&C, they sent us home. And from that point on, I was not the same person. I remember being super strong in the hospital, or not even in the hospital, but on the way to the hospital, because I knew that my husband would freak out and I wanted him to be okay. It was like out of body. I knew, it's like my mind knew my child was gone. And all I could think of is I have to protect my husband and make sure he's okay. I have to let my mom know because she's expecting to be a grandmother. And I really wasn't thinking about myself. It was just like, okay, I have to make sure everybody's good. But from that day, I was never the same person. We had different ways we were grieving. We didn't quite understand how the other one was grieving because we were so fresh and so raw. Sometimes, or I would say not we, I was so fresh and so raw. Sometimes when the option is to be politically correct and answering a question, I would just be brutally honest. Listen, I just lost my baby. I'm confused about life. Okay. I'm not, I'm not that normal Shalika you want me to be. I am trying to navigate who I am after what has just happened and the trauma associated with that. I went to therapy right away, but I kind of did the 3 times with your EAP plan. And then I felt like, okay, Shalika, you can try this again. So my husband and I agreed to try to get pregnant. Or let me back up some. So in the midst of that period, 3 weeks after we lost our baby, I had asked my doctor what was, the baby's gestation. Could you tell what the sex was? I had Googled so much, like I drove myself crazy with Google, and I'd looked and I'd said, okay, well, maybe they can't tell me exactly the gestation, but at 14 weeks, you should at least see something. Is there some tests? And her only answers to me that time was the baby was somewhere between 12 and 14 weeks, and they couldn't tell me the gestation. Not being okay with that answer, 3 weeks later, I emailed her and said, listen, my husband and I are trying to find peace with what has happened. Can you please provide more information? Are you sure you don't know what the gestation was? Are you sure you don't know what the sex was? And that's when she said, you had a baby boy based on, I forgot how she put it, but based on the genitalia area, we believe that you had a baby boy. That's how she put it. And that his gestation was 14 weeks. So it pretty much confirmed that I was indeed 14 weeks pregnant, but I just didn't know what the sex was of my baby. So at that point, my husband and I decided to name our boy Amari Shane, which Amari means strength. And we came up with that because I literally told him that was the strongest time I felt in my entire life. And then from there, the Shane came from my brother's name is Shane, and I'm just obsessed with his name. And I believe that Shane means, if I'm not mistaken, either God is with me or God is strong. I used to know it by heart, and it's crazy how details leave you. But that was Amari Shane, and we decided that not only would we try to get pregnant again, but we will also celebrate him on what would have been his due date. So fast forwarding into 2016, we tried to get pregnant again. We ended up getting pregnant in March, but I found out in April, the week after my birthday, April the 13th. Amari's due date was April 23rd. So it was like, okay, we're getting a present for Amari's due date, and it's going to soften the blow a little bit. So on April 23rd, which would have been Amari's due date, we had a memorial ceremony of sorts. We invited his parents, my parents, some friends of ours. They came to our apartment, one of the meeting areas at our apartment. We had lunch, and then we said, okay, we'll share that we're pregnant, but it shouldn't leave this room. Everybody found out we were pregnant again. We released balloons in Amari's honor. And then we kind of went on with the second pregnancy. I was paranoid the whole time. I'm not even going to lie. I changed OBs because I was still kind of irritated that I couldn't get straight answers the first pregnancy. And then the second pregnancy, or before the second pregnancy, I was told that they would do genetic testing where they would test the baby at 12 weeks. They would look at the baby's neck and they would test my blood for any abnormalities. But when I, told them I was pregnant and asked them, okay, so at 12 weeks, this is what we're going to do. The response was like, oh no, you have to go through a second loss before we consider that, that particular testing. And I'm like, no, that's not the answer you gave me before. And because I'm one of those people where my short-term memory, I don't always remember conversations well. When it's something I really need to know and refer back to, I'll record the conversation, like for doctor's appointments and things of that nature. I'll record the conversation just so if I miss any detail, I can go back and refer to it. And when I went back to that recording, she did indeed say that we would have this testing. So I said, okay, this is really frustrating. I had heard about a different OB that, was really good with not just, helping you have a baby, but they were more in tune with the woman. They actually were a little bit more caring. So I opted to go to a new OB. I told them my situation and they agreed to, do this testing for me at 12 weeks since we didn't know what had really happened with our first baby. So similar to Amari's pregnancy, around, I can't remember if it was 5 to 7 weeks, I had the bleeding again. However, this time my HCG levels were super high. So I was like, okay, I'm really encouraged. Things are looking well. They advised that we abstain from sex for a while just so my cervix wouldn't be so easily irritated. And they were also good about, anytime I was nervous about anything, they would let me come in right away. So I remember before having my first official OB appointment, I had come in, I believe it was, so the bleeding was 5 weeks, I'm sorry. So I came in at 7 weeks and they, looked at the baby, confirmed that I was okay. And then 2 weeks later, I went in for my official OB appointment. Anytime I wanted an ultrasound, they gave me one. I had like 7 or 8 ultrasounds before it was all over with. But their plan was 12 weeks again. They would do this genetic testing. We went in at that 12 weeks. And the funny thing about that was, again, I had no idea what I was having. I was banking on a girl because, most moms want girls. And so when the ultrasound tech did the test, she started, checking his neck, and then they checked, all his different body parts. And then she closed in between his legs and she said, it's too early to officially say, but if you don't have any boy names, you might want to come up with some. So I found that super funny. My husband and I laughed, and I remember having a dream about Sunshine. And I was like, well, I can't name my child Sunshine. I'm like, that's weird. So after doing some research over what would mean sunshine or something related to light or anything of that nature, we came up with the name Aiden. And we said, just in case it's a boy, we'll name him Aiden Zahir, which Aiden means little fiery one. And then Zahir, gosh, again, details. I can't remember exactly what Zahir means, but it was related. And my husband thought the name was beautiful, so we went with that. Around week 14, we had another checkup. They told us everything looks good. We know that you're nervous because you lost the baby at 14 weeks last time. So what we want to do for you is when you come back for your 16-week appointment, we will begin to check your cervix and just see how things are progressing. So we said, okay. We came back at 16 weeks and really, really nervous. This particular practitioner was really quiet. So we were just like, okay, as long as he doesn't say anything or, makes a weird face, I guess everything is fine. So I remember leaving that appointment or getting ready to leave that appointment. And he said, okay, Miss Bethel, everything does look good, but I want you to come back in 2 weeks when you get your anatomy scan and see us again. Because I want to check your cervix again. And I was like, okay, well, I thought if everything was okay, we would be good to go. That's what I was thinking. I didn't say it out loud, but I just said, okay, we'll schedule that appointment too. I looked at the aftercare instructions online, and I had noticed that the length of my cervix was a lot shorter than what Google had said that it should be at that gestation. But I said, okay, Shalika, you've been freaking out this whole pregnancy. Let's not freak out about this. Let's make the appointment for your anatomy scan. Just make the next appointment to see your doctor and go from there. However, 2 days later, I began to feel pressure at the bottom of my stomach. And I was trying not to freak out. But as it progressed all day long, I realized, okay, something's really wrong. Let me go find out what's going on. So around this was July. So around 1 a.m. on July 16th, I went to the emergency room and said, hey, can you guys just check me out? I'm feeling some pressure in the bottom of my cervix. I'm about 16 weeks pregnant. Can you just let me know if you see anything? So they checked my son's heart rate at first, checked for his heartbeat. Heartbeat was fine. They looked at him in the ultrasound. As always, he was moving. He was his normal, just like he was just moving a lot. So she said, Mrs. Bethel, let me check your cervix. So I said, okay. She said, I can't see your cervix. I was like, what do you mean you can't see my cervix? And she said, she didn't use the word bag, but she said, it looks like there's a bubble covering your cervix. Since we're just an emergency room, let me call the main hospital and talk to the OB. So I said, okay. They decided that they would transport me to the main hospital and have me meet with the OB. They said because of my history, they didn't want me to try to stand up. So they immediately transferred me from the bed to the stretcher and had me wheeled to the ambulance. She was very hopeful that they would be able to give me a cerclage to close my cervix up and that I would be able to go on my way. But when we got to the hospital, the OB confirmed that it was my bags that were starting to protrude out of my cervix and that there was nothing that they could do. I was going to have to deliver my baby. So, I mean, gut wrenching. It's like, wow, Lord, I'm being punched with this again. What do I do? And immediately I go into save everyone mode. I tried to console my husband. My mother was going to be coming the next day anyway to just have a regular visit with us and my brother. I'm trying to contact them, but I'm also knowing that at this point it's 3 a.m. I don't want to disturb anyone. So they wheeled me to a room and I spent most of the day just trying to make sure that everybody that was going to be in the area was in place. Like, okay, I needed my mom to be in place. I needed my brother to be in place. I needed to keep my husband calm. they told me that I didn't have to rush, that whenever I was ready to be induced, they would induce me. But I was like, I can't be induced until I know my mom's here and my mom's safe. So thankfully, my brother at that time was there to be able to tell her that I was in the hospital and that she needed to come come to the hospital instead of going to our house. So she got there. We still decided to wait, praying and hoping for a miracle that maybe my bags would recede and that they would be able to do something. But unfortunately, they didn't and they couldn't. So somewhere around 8 o'clock that night, my husband and I decided that, okay, we'll let them induce. And they induced me. They gave me the suppositories to induce the labor. I remember the nurse asking me, Mrs. Bethel, would you like to have an epidural? And because I'd gone through something similar before, I was like, no, why do I need an epidural? And she said, okay, well, there's some pain medicine that we can give you. We can only give it to you, I believe it was once an hour or once every 30 minutes. So once the labor ramped up, every 15 minutes, I would be like, oh gosh, this is really, really bad. But they couldn't do anything until it was hour on the hour because they couldn't give me that medication so close together. So I went through a super, super hard labor, and eventually my son came at 11:20 p.m. They did confirm that it was a boy, and I went into total, I don't know if it was shock, but I was in protection mode again. I remember asking them, or not asking them. They offered would you like pictures? Would you like handprints, fingerprints, all that stuff? I was like, yes, I want it all, because in the back of my mind, I was like, the only thing I know about Amari is from his ultrasound pictures, but I never got a chance to see him. I never got a chance to know anything about him other than what I felt in my heart for him. So with Aiden, we got everything. And I remember the first chaplain that came in, bless her heart. I was even trying to console her, and she was so sweet. She was like, Mr. and Mrs. Bethel, I'm so, so sorry. I'm so sorry that this happened. And she was just very, very loving and kind. And she asked, if there was anything she could do. And I said, if you could just pray for us. And, I don't remember the exact scripture that I gave her, but I gave her a scripture that had been on my heart, and I had her pray over us, and we kind of proceeded with, getting the placenta out, similar to before. My doctor tried to get the placenta out, but could not again. And I started to bleed really, really heavily. So they had to do emergency DNC. And because I'd lost so much blood, I had to stay in the hospital for 3 days. The blessing in that is that they allowed me to keep Aiden the entire 3 days. And I was able to just spend time with him and just tell him, I'm so, so sorry. I'm so sorry that my body did this to you. Like, I'm so, so sorry. And after that, I remember leaving the hospital and just being, if I didn't think I was the same before, I definitely wasn't the same this time. And I just remember everything being a cloudy haze. We definitely weren't grieving in the same way this time. The trauma hit my husband a little bit harder because when I gave birth to Aiden, he saw Aiden alive. I didn't see Aiden alive. So, watching your baby kind of fight for his life, it really took a toll on my husband. That following year, we just were not in a good place and were really, really close to divorcing. But I remember thinking on our vows and thinking about what we had promised God. And I said, even if he's not ready to fight right now, Lord, I'll fight whatever you want me to do. I'll fight. And eventually we got back on the same page. We never divorced. We decided to stay together. But, we decided, okay, we're going to have to fight together this time. We started going to counseling. And as a matter of fact, we still go to counseling just so we can kind of relearn things about each other, relearn things about, sometimes when you just get married and you have so much trauma happen to you in a course of time and you haven't quite learned each other in marriage, it can be like super, super tough. But I'm happy to say, though we don't have living children, we're still fighting for us. And then, also trying to, work on having a family, because that's something that we were always 100% on the same page about. We want to be parents. We want to, we want to share that part of ourselves with the living child. So yeah, that's pretty much the story of the losses in and of themselves.
Today's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp.com. That is better, HELP.com. Is there something interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving your personal goals? BetterHelp will assist your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. You can start communicating in under 24 hours. It's not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It is professional counseling done securely online. There's a broad range of expertise in BetterHelp's counselor network, which may not be locally available in many areas. This service is available for clients worldwide. You can log into your account anytime and send a message directly to your counselor. You'll get timely and thoughtful responses. Plus, you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions so you won't ever have to sit in an uncomfortable waiting room as with traditional therapy. BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, so they make it easy and free to change counselors if needed. BetterHelp wants you to start living a happier life today. Visit their website at betterhelp.com/sisters. That's better, HELP, and join the over 500,000 people taking charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional. There's a special offer for our listeners. For Sisters in Loss listeners, get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/sisters. I am so excited for you all to tune into BetterHelp, as I've been using it for the last 4 weeks, and I absolutely love the counselor that I was matched with. You can also choose a counselor that specifically works with African American patients or is African American themselves, especially if you're looking for someone who can relate to your cultural experiences as you're going through grief, loss, and healing. Once again, the website to get 10% off is betterhelp.com/sisters, betterhelp.com/sisters.
Thank you so much for sharing that and sharing it in so much detail. And I could hear it in your voice and just how really you have gone through your own personal healing journey. After your second loss, were they able to diagnose you with the incompetent cervix, or what was the result of the second loss? Were they able to give you some type of formal diagnosis?
They didn't. So they did say, so let me kind of set it a little bit. So we had gone to maternal fetal medicine, and they said, based on the events of this pregnancy, it was seen that you have an incompetent cervix. So because I was also working with a different OB, I also got a second opinion from him and maternity fetal medicine. And they both said, based on this pregnancy, it would seem that you have an incompetent cervix. And what I loved about my new OB, he also said, I'm also looking at the data that I was able to get from your previous pregnancy, and looking at both pregnancies, we're going to you as, someone with incompetent cervix. He said it's really hard to tell because the second one they knew for sure that, okay, this links directly to incompetent cervix or IC, but the first one they still weren't quite sure. So he said, this is our plan for when you get pregnant again. Soon as you find out, you let us know. And at 12 weeks, because I'm considering that your first one was at 14, we'll give you a cerclage at that point. Do a combination of bed rest and I believe it was progesterone suppositories, and then kind of partner from there. So it wasn't, I guess you can say it was formal, but I didn't take it as formal because I felt like, well, you guys still kind of don't know, but I appreciate you for coming up with a plan, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's always good to make sure that our providers have a plan going forward, especially when we know that we're still on this journey. We still want to try. We still know that God has promised us the desires of our heart. You mentioned that you and your husband went to counseling and you really took us on that whole journey. Where are you both now in your process where you are ready to try again?
We are both, and I'm surprised because there were times where I really wanted to get pregnant. He did not. And then there was times where he wanted us to get pregnant and I did not. We are actually on the same page. And so this side of the story is now, we got pregnant at 31. I was 31 and 32 the last time. Now I'm 35 and it's a little bit harder. So we're working with a fertility specialist to kind of pinpoint what's going on. I found out that I hadn't been ovulating regularly. Part of that, could be attributed to my age, but then the other part of it is the fact that even prior to getting married, not getting married, but prior to deciding to get pregnant again, I had gotten back on birth control. So, they always tell you birth control is supposed to regulate your cycles and all that. But it hasn't been officially said, but part of me feels like up until this point, I had gotten pregnant with no problem. Now I'm having problems. So the long and short of it is we're working with a fertility doctor to not only get me ovulating regularly, but also producing more mature follicles. At this point, when I do ovulate, I normally have one. So we're kind of going through the process of trying to get, at least two to better our chances. So we're on another journey. And this time we're really together on it. You know what I mean? Instead of kind of like, oh my God, this is so frustrating, I'm going to retreat away from you. We've kind of been pulling together, and the counseling piece of that has really, really helped us kind of stick together when it gets hard with the infertility part of it.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. And I think that it is a journey, and it's good to know that you have your partner in life that is with you, that's there to support you, that's going to encourage you as you both go through this journey together to continue to grow your family.
Yes.
So what tools or resources or books that you have used that has really helped you as you begin to heal?
So the biggest saving grace or biggest resource for me has been this group called Parent Care in Raleigh, North Carolina. So basically, it's a group of mothers and fathers that have either, had miscarriages, had late term losses, or even losses after the baby was born. We meet twice a month on Thursdays, and we just share. We can, and it's totally free in the sense of if you want to share, you can. If you don't, you don't have to. But it's like you have that support system, so that additional support system. And we've been doing that consistently for the past 3 years. Mainly me, because my husband, it doesn't quite fit with his work schedule. But I met so many people in that group. It's like the biggest resource out of all the resources I've had is other women who knew how I felt. A lot of times in this society, things like pregnancy loss, and you probably are aware of this, it kind of gets glossed over, like, oh, you'll have another one, or you guys are young, you got plenty of time. But to have people that actually say, hey, I get how you feel, and it's okay for you to be honest and raw and vulnerable, that was the greatest resource. Some of the other ones, there's another group called Covered in Love. And what I like about this group, they're also based out of Raleigh, North Carolina. You can go to their website and put in, if you've had a loss, you put your name in, or the name of someone that has recently had a loss, and they will send you a blanket. You just give them your information. They will send you a blanket to memorialize your baby. And that, I have two, and that has always, when I look at those, that's been really good. Hope for the Morning is another resource. They're an online community, but you can put your information there and they'll send you a care package, especially, and it's really good for people who are new in loss, like the first couple of weeks, because what they do is they send you not only books and different resources, but they also send you gift cards so you can get meals, like from, I think ours came from like Olive Garden and Chipotle. And that was a life send, because that was heaven sent, because that week it was really, really hard to kind of get up and cook and, and do what you would normally do. So Hope for the Morning is good. Empty Cradle is a book by Pam Vril, I think it's Vril Det, but that talks about the different stages of pregnancy loss, and it really deals with her journey. And I found that to be really, really healing and helpful. And then the main resource is, I guess you could call this a resource, is just being open, being open to share my story whenever I'm given the opportunity. So those are the things that's kind of been helping me with my healing journey.
Yes. No, it's definitely being able to share your story in its entirety brings healing. You're speaking truth to power, and you never know who's on that other side that can just get that little gem, that little nugget that you share that helps them move forward on their own journey and their own path. Last question I have for you is, what encouraging words can you give the mom out there that's in a similar situation where they've had a few losses, a recurrent pregnancy loss, and they are in that trying to conceive and infertility journey?
I would tell a new mom, give yourself grace and forgive yourself. You're gonna question your body. You're gonna question your purpose. Every day, every month after your loss, you're gonna question yourself. And if you're trying to get pregnant, every time you have your period, you're going to question yourself, and you're going to question your body, and you're going to feel like, oh my God, my body is my worst enemy. And because your body is a part of you, it's what God has given you. Just forgive yourself. I'm one of those people that's super hard on myself. And I know this particular life journey, it makes you super hard on yourself. So I would say, just forgive yourself, and every chance that you have to wake up, anytime you're able to get out of bed, you've won. You've already defeated that giant of the day, whether you feel like you did or you didn't. As long as you're moving, and even if you're not even if it's not your best day, the fact that you woke up and the fact that you can cry means you're still a mother. You're still moving through this thing, and you will get through it. It won't be linear. It won't, we like to think that there'll be steps to it. And though there's steps that can help you through it, you could be totally killing it one day and then be at your lowest point. But the fact that you got up, you've won, and you're winning.
Oh, love that. Love that. Thank you so much for sharing your story and sharing your light with us Where can we find you, Shalika, on social?
So right now I'm in the process of getting social media pages dedicated, just so I can share my story. So they're not quite ready. But if anyone wants to reach me directly, you can email me at shalika.b14@gmail.com. And once I do get, because now I'm at that stage of life where I'm really sharing and pouring out. And I know social media is a big tool. Like I watch you and I'm like, man, Erica is so brave to just like share and just be there for people. Maybe I'm not going to do exactly what she does, but I want to, have something to share with. Right now I'm just starting with my email and then I'll have my pages up. So as soon as I have that, I'll share the additional information as well.
Yes, absolutely. And I would love to link all of that once you have them up and running. So people, when this episode airs, people are able to definitely connect with you as you go forward in your journey and continue to just pray for you. I think that's, sometimes we know that prayers of strangers, of people who we may not even know, are going to continue to go without void into the atmosphere. So sometimes we just need that extra encouragement through the online presence. So I appreciate you for sharing your story thus far, and we're going to continue to lift you and your husband up as you continue to try again and go through this infertility journey.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your platform with me.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. For show notes and more information on today's guest, go to sistersinlost.com. If you have not joined our online community, go to sistersinlost.com, as well as sign up for our newsletter. We want you to be a part of the community so you can know all of the events that we have planned on as Sisters in Lost. Go to sistersinlost.com, sign up for our newsletter, join our online community, and stay connected with us. Talk to you soon.